Welcome to the GRS podcast. Matt Dubber, the king of shooting monkeys and dassies, a world champion Airgun PRS shooter, entrepreneur, and the first person to ever shoot a GRS Bifrost stocks. Welcome to the GRS podcast.
Thank you so much, Oscar. That's a very kind introduction. I just normally think of myself as the guy in shorts who shoots monkeys all day, but you've mentioned a few other things there as well. I'm sure we'll get into it. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you for accepting the invitation to participate in the podcast. You're actually the first one we have on here. Would you mind doing a short presentation of yourself to the audience?
Of course. So my name's Matt Dubber. I've got my fingers in quite a few areas in the outdoors and shooting industry, but started off probably 12 years ago, 13 years ago, making YouTube videos with air rifles, tutorials, hunting videos, and then sort of branching out into other things, a little bit of bow hunting, quite a lot of rifle hunting, a lot of varminting. Here in South Africa, we have a lot of like smaller pest species, and that's something that I've really grown to enjoy. And then more recently, got more into business, and a few years ago started Element Optics with a few other people. And that's been great. So just in the deep end in the shooting industry, and absolutely loving it.
Good, excellent. We could talk for hours. I'm sure we can have no problem filling the evening. But the topics I thought we'll be talking about today is going to be YouTube. Obviously, you are a massive figure on YouTube. Then the world of air guns, which I actually think a lot of us powder burners, and it was kind of a world I didn't know or existed. And then we'll go over to Element Optics, which you are involved with as well. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So for the YouTube side, you have a channel called Air Arms Hunting South Africa, which has 609,000 subscribers, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy.
When did you start? When did you start the channel?
So the channel, I started back in, I think it was 2012 or 2013. And the story was, I think I went on, I'd always been interested in guns. I grew up going to like birthday parties in primary school when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And, in South Africa, everyone knows someone who owns a big farm somewhere. So for these birthday parties, I'd be invited out to my friends' houses or farms, and then we'd be handed a rifle, normally an old 303 that's been handed down, through generations, and we'd put something up and we'd be taught how to shoot. And, once you feel the recoil for the first time, you're hooked. So I got into shooting air guns, and eventually I went online. I saw a YouTube video of someone in Ireland shooting rabbits. And I thought, hold on a second, like, I was still under 18, so I thought, this is a gun. I can get an air rifle without needing a license, and I've always enjoyed making videos. So I thought, let me just put something up on YouTube and see what happens. One thing led to the next, and people started watching. And for me, the goal was never to grow a massive subscriber base or make it a full-time job. The goal was always just, I was putting out content because I enjoyed it, and if no one watched it, I would still put it out. So it was just it was a blessing over and above what I expected to have a big audience. But I've always enjoyed just putting out videos, and it's just grown through the years as I've started putting more effort into it. I think if you spend time doing something every day, all those hours spent, you become better and better naturally. And while a lot of people are sitting in offices or, doing their day jobs, my day job is shooting. So I spent tens of thousands of hours shooting and doing all kinds of things, and just grew as a shooter and as a online personality, and it's been really fun.
Yeah, that's excellent. I think we met the first time back in 2015, 14 or 15. Is that correct?
It sounds about right. I can't remember if it was Huntex or Iwa, but I had been following GRS for a while, because GRS is one of the brands that's very popular in South Africa. You've got great partners over here, and your stocks are very popular in certain shooting disciplines. So I'd known the brand for a while. I've always been a sucker for laminate stocks. I just think it's one of the most beautiful things.
They're beautiful.
And so I probably came up to you. It must have been either Huntex or Iwa, and the rest is history.
Yeah. No, it's time flies. It's amazing how fast
Crazy.
it flies. But yeah, and we had the honor of having you over here for just after Iwa actually in 2018 when we got the first Bifrost together, and that was pretty special. So the video you made there, you guys should go and check out this video on visiting GRS. It's pretty awesome to see the first shot on film.
Yeah, that was honestly one of the highlights for me of of my career. I've got to travel all over the world, and I would say as far as just the beautiful scenery, Patagonia and Norway is very hard. Those two places are very hard to beat. And I mean, Norway, it was very cold when I was there, but it was a wonderful experience. Not just your surroundings there. You're right next to a lake that's like 800 and something meters deep, which is insane. Mountains everywhere, but
officially
500. Yeah, that's still very
deep enough. Yes.
Yeah, and then to see your factory and how everything's made and all the personal touches that are put on by hand was very cool.
Yeah, and it's still the same process. We haven't changed that since you were here. So there's a lot of
that's awesome.
Cutting edge technology going into cutting with a CNC machine, but it's always about the human factor and getting the perfect surfaces and sanding and finishing. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Going back to the YouTube side, did you have a pivot point when you kind of hockey sticked and got lots of subscribers? Was there a video that went viral, anything? Or
there's one video that I think shot off higher than the rest, and it was a series called the Oxwagon Diaries, which is just one property that I've kept going back to every year, and I think I've made 50 something episodes there now. Yeah, but it was one of the first varminting episodes that I did, really focusing on shooting monkeys. And obviously that's a very strange thing to a lot of people who don't know that they are pest animals in South Africa. But it's one of my favorite types of shooting to do because it's action packed. You have a monkey shows up, you've got a few seconds to take a shot. So you have to be very good at, you've got to spot it, you've got to range it, you've got to factor in the wind, you've got to find a good shooting position, and you've got to engage it very quickly. You get a lot of trigger time because you're shooting a lot. And there's the stress of shooting a big trophy animal and worrying about wounding it is not there because, if you just get a small piece of a monkey with a 22-50, it's no longer
still a big
with us.
A big chunk.
So, but that episode really helped my channel take off. But I think in general, I just kind of got into a rhythm of putting out content regularly when I got to the point where it could become a full-time job and I was able to put more effort into it. That's when it took off. But as I say, I think the secret to being successful on YouTube is just to do it for the right reasons and do it because you love it. And if you do it because you love it, it will come. Your passion for it will come across to people, and they'll be able to relate. And I think that's the only advice I have. If you're starting a YouTube channel just to get the numbers, it's going to drive you crazy because it takes a good few years to build up any sort of audience, especially now when everyone's got a YouTube channel.
Everyone's doing.
I was lucky in that when I started, before the days of monetizing videos, there was no one else making videos because there was no incentive for people and companies to put content out. So if you were doing it because you loved it or because you had a lot of free time. And so I there wasn't a lot of competition, if that's one way of looking at it. Whereas now there's hunting channels everywhere, a lot of really good channels, but also a lot of average channels. So to stand out, you've got to really nowadays, you have to fight the algorithm. When I started, there was no algorithm. People found you by searching your content. That's it. There were no suggested videos. So times have changed a lot.
Yeah, and one of the things I love your videos on YouTube, and that's actually something I watch all the time. And but I love the fact that you kind of educated the audience on like pest control. So there's pests
Yeah.
in every country. Like for the stateside and the hogs down south, it's a menace, and they do a lot
Yeah.
of damage. And it's the same thing with monkeys in South Africa. But I would imagine that you got a lot of hate when you started posting those. They are cute, those monkeys, and they're beautiful
Yeah.
animals, but they do a lot of damage.
It's funny because even the videos that go viral, which normally are the ones that reach the audience you don't intend them to reach, they still have like 97 or 98% like to dislike ratio. And I think part of the reason is, so I think it's very important to educate people about whatever you do. And I think it's detrimental to our industry if you have people posting videos of shocking content, let's say monkey shooting or hog shooting, where there's a lot of squealing and stuff like that, if you're not explaining why you're doing it, because it comes across as being irresponsible or
Just a bull.
you're just out there to hurt animals. And I think people misinterpret, when you let's say you shoot a beautiful trophy animal and you like celebrate, and people don't realize you're not celebrating because you've hurt something. You're celebrating because you've done a good job in putting in a good shot. If you wound an animal, you shouldn't be celebrating. You celebrate because you've put in hard work to make sure it's an ethical shot, and that you're getting close enough, and you're doing your work on judging the conditions around you and compensating for all those conditions, and you're putting in a good shot, and that's why you're celebrating, because you're doing it ethically. So I think education is very important. I'm very passionate not just about entertaining people, but about educating people. Part of that is not just on the hunting side, but also the technical side of shooting. I'm super passionate about that. I enjoy on the airgun side. There's a lot of technical, there's a lot of technical stuff on the airgun side about how everything works. But the ballistics for me is something that I love to share information about how everything works, and then to see people become better shooters because they understanding. And we did a video a few years ago in Tennessee, I think it was, where we we put a gong up, we took a factory rifle, and we showed if your data is good and you know how to input the data into a good ballistics calculator, there's so much you can do with the right products and the right information. And that's what I'm passionate about, is to see a hunter who's very experienced but perhaps doesn't know much about how their system works. They've grown up with like an old 3-9 scope with a duplex reticle and maybe a very capable caliber. Like a classic example would be your 6.5 by 55 that you guys use up in Scandinavia. Super capable cartridge, but if you don't know how to get the most out of it, you're missing out. So I think a lot of people have all these capable cartridges. You think of like a 243, for example. They're also a very capable cartridge, but they're not getting the most out of it because they don't know how to use it. And that's what I'm trying to, I enjoy seeing the satisfaction in people when it clicks and they take that shot and they realize, oh my word, like this rifle is capable of so much more than I thought it was.
Yep. No, I agree. It's so much fun getting into that. And the rifle that you and I shot in Tennessee was actually, I took that rifle out to Colorado, and we were hunting. Sorry, we're not hunting, but we shot that rifle out to 2.4 kilometers, and it performed flawlessly with the same setup that we were using at 600 yards. So they're very highly capable rifles. And also, I fully agree with the education side. I actually had a marketing idea that I hadn't had time yet to shoot, but I'm like filming a hunting situation and kind of start with a bang, and then you kind of go step back, how much time you put into getting the load, training on the ranges, all the stuff that we as passionate hunters do, because we want to make sure that the shot we're taking is 100%. And there's so much time and effort that goes into that. So I agree 100%. The way trophy hunters has been portrayed in they're all over. It's like these people are here just to kill. That's not
Yeah,
the thing at all.
exactly.
So it's a lot of yeah. Maybe I'll make that video one day. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's interesting also because the average person might think that, what kind of information would they need to know about a stock? A stock is just a stock. But what I've noticed is a lot of people will buy let's say like a over-the-counter Hawa or something, and they'll buy the rifle thinking, what's the point of ever needing to upgrade the stock? It's just for looks. And then they realize that, they're having issues, and it's not the ammo, it's not the barrel, it's not them. Something's not right. And a lot of the time it's a stock that's too flexible, or a stock that's touching the barrel, or an action that's not bedded properly, or even just a stock that doesn't fit them properly. Like the cheek piece height is made for open sights, for example, like this low cheek piece, or the length of pull's not correct. And they don't realize that the interface, the precision is in the barrel, but the accuracy is in the stock, in the sense that if you can't translate your steady shooting position into the rifle, and that, that goes for other things as well, like a bar pod and a rear bag. If you can't keep that rifle still, what's the point? It's like having a sports car with the wrong tires. That's the interface 100%. Between the car and the ground. And if you don't have the right traction, you're in trouble. And so, I think there's so much that people can learn, even from something as, seemingly basic as a stock. There's a lot more to it than people think. And that's why I have no shortage of content ideas for YouTube as far as the tutorial stuff goes, because there's always something to talk about.
Yeah. I think that's something we have to be better at communicating as well, because obviously you know our stocks, you've been using those for a lot of years, and you're absolutely right. You shoot with a rifle and you hit with the stock. It's all about transferring recoil consistently, so you get a consistent recoil absorption. Therefore, you kind of isolate. And our stocks is all about the ergonomic side, and also about the removing movement in the shooting position, basically. So the rifle actually fits you, and that makes a huge difference once you start shooting stocks that actually fit you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I think we're going to go into airgun shooting.
Perfect.
Yeah, you become a world champion on several of the RMAC competitions. And first of all, I think, could you explain what RMAC is for the audience who doesn't know?
So RMAC it stands for the Rocky Mountain Airgun Challenge. It's a competition hosted by Utah Airguns once a year in Utah. It's one of my favorite events to go to. Once again, the surroundings there are beautiful, but also the people there are fantastic. And it's not a traditional, it's not a traditional world championship in the sense that you don't have to qualify regionally first. It's kind of an open competition, so anyone can go shoot. But because it's such a well-known competition, the very best in the airgun, the competition shooting world normally are there, and they come from, I think it's like 20 different countries or something crazy, all over the world once a year, and you get to really test yourself against the best. And we're also finding that there are people from outside the airgun community, especially now on the PRS side, who are coming to shoot, so the level of competition is very high. So I've won a couple disciplines there, but I would say the one I'm most proud of is probably precision rifle, because the standard is so high. And it's not a traditional world championship, so I don't know if I'd call myself a world champion, but I'm very happy. I'm very grateful to be able to come from a place where I live here on the coast in South Africa, where there's not a lot of competition. And you don't really know where you stand, because you're not testing yourself against great shooters regularly, and be able to go there and really test myself and see where I'm actually at. And the funny thing is, the only practice I get is shooting monkeys. That's about it. But it's amazing how just getting out and getting trigger time and, becoming one with your rifle And when you see a monkey and you've got to quickly build a position to shoot it, and you have that you get that natural point of aim, and you settle behind the rifle, and you're able to overcome your beating heart and steady yourself and be disciplined with your trigger pull. Those fundamentals translate to so many different sports.
Yep.
And I've found like I've been able to transition between shooting disciplines, and the fundamentals still remain the same. There's a few things that I've had to learn. For example, I've started shooting a lot of pistol matches, RPSC pistol matches. And that quickly taught me how bad my trigger pull was. When you shoot a pistol, you very quickly learn if you're jerking the trigger. And so I've had to like learn on that discipline how to fix my trigger pull. And once again, that's just made me a better shooter, and that skill's transferred back over to shooting rifles. So yeah, shooting sports, it's wonderful to get into sport shooting. And there's definitely a crossover in skill set between hunting and competition shooting.
I agree 100%. And it's that's the thing about shooting. And there's so many different disciplines and niches you can go into, and everyone is kind of they make you better overall in one way or another. So you never get fully educated on anything of it. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
On the airgun side, how many airgun, like high-end airgunners, do you think there would be in like worldwide? Because I was surprised about the size of that market.
It's a hard one to gauge because there's so many airgun disciplines and they are so vastly different. So, for example, if you watch the Olympics, you'll see so many 10-meter air rifle shooters in India and places like India and China, which have basically don't have a firearms market, but they have a thriving competition airgun scene there.
Yeah.
And then there's, like in South Africa here, we have air rifle shooting as a school sport. So at school, if you are too fat to play a normal sport, normally you end up like, okay, well, I've got to do, I can choose, I can play chess or I can go shoot. And a lot of people will start shooting and really enjoy it. And you can then earn your provincial colors and your national colors and then go compete internationally. So as a sport, the pathways to become good are there. And the schools have budgets for buying air tanks and guns and pellets and everything. So all you have to do is rock up and you can go compete, which is great. And then there's in Europe, bench rest shooting is quite a big thing. So the WRABF, the World Air Rifle and Rimfire Bench Rest Federation, I went to a World Champs a few years ago, and I think there were like 20 or 30 countries represented there. Lots of shooters, and a lot in Europe because Europe has many 50-meter ranges, rimfire ranges, and then a lot of times you can shoot air rifles without a license if power is under a certain level, and then you get some countries like the Netherlands who don't have any power restrictions for air rifles. So air rifles are extremely popular because you can buy a big bore air rifle without a license, whereas a firearm is very, very difficult to get there. So I think a lot of it's down to the laws. Here in South Africa, for example, we can get 5.5 millimeter or 22 caliber air rifles without a license, without power restrictions. Whereas a rimfire, which would be kind of the equivalent, you have to jump through quite a few hoops to get that license. So we find air rifle, a lot of kids will grow up learning how to shoot with an air rifle because that's what you can learn with. You get a lot of trigger time, it's cheap to shoot, and you can still grow into sort of high-end, very precise air guns that are capable of a lot more. And if you want to there, you can, cross over and shoot rimfires and centerfires also. So funnily enough, I would say it's the opposite to the rest, to firearms, in the sense that America is probably still the smallest or the most untapped market when it comes to air guns.
Yeah.
It's got so much potential, but because it's so easy to buy firearms, it just hasn't really broken out there. But we're starting to see a lot more of that as air guns become more affordable and better. A lot of people are waking up to the fact that there's more out there than just a Red Rider that can shoot little BBs. So yeah, that's very cool to see.
Yeah, talking about high-end rifles, I've been at Ormac a couple of times, visiting you guys, and also competing or trying to compete with you guys.
Yeah.
But it's basically the most dominant one and the most used one on the bench race side is definitely FX. And I know
Yeah.
you've been working with FX Airguns for a long time, and I been visiting them a couple of times, and they, it's, how should I put it? That kind of is like a Formula One car of air
Yeah.
rifles, and the way they do it, they're so damn smart over there.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. Would you
Yeah.
like to talk a little bit about FX?
Yeah, FX is an incredible company. I was introduced to them, I think the same year I met you at IWA. I was introduced to them, and it was incredible how inclusive they were in listening to people like me who, at that time I felt like I was a nobody in the industry. And yet they asked my thoughts on where do I think the technology in the air gun's going. I remember I had an hour-long conversation on the phone with Frederick, the owner, and we just geeked out over the valving and the hammer weight and how the air moves through the transfer port and all the technical stuff. And I think FX is so pioneering as far as pushing technology forward. And that makes them very exciting to be around, because they're always looking at how can they make things better. And one of the few airgun manufacturers that do everything in house. They don't buy barrels from someone else. They don't. They very much the core of the barreled action and all the technical stuff inside. They control everything, so they can make incremental changes every day to make their products better. And great people, and I love working with them. And it's always, as an example, a few years ago I was questioning, why are we shooting Diablo pellet shapes? Like it's like shooting a parachute. It's the drag is so high, and the reason those exist is because 100 years ago, when barrel rifling wasn't as good, or maybe the diameter control on how they made the projectiles wasn't that great, you needed a self-stabilizing projectile, and a Diablo pellet has its center of gravity in front of center of pressure, so it self-stabilizes. But that has serious limitations when it comes to long-range shooting. It catches the wind, it slows down too quickly. So I was questioning, why are we not doing that in the airgun industry if a rimfire, which is shooting at a similar power, can do it no problem? And, I was at the FX factory trying to shoot various slug designs out their barrels, and we were having no luck. And I remember Frederick, the owner, basically, he didn't give up. He didn't say, you know what, I don't think this. Well, actually, he said, you know what, I don't think there's a future in this, but carry on trying. And he pushed me to keep on trying, even though it was kind of like a waste of my time there at the factory. I had other things to do, but he pushed me to keep trying. And the result is that FX now has the barrels that can shoot slugs the best. And that's pushed them to, the point where I can shoot balloons at 600 plus meters. It's absolutely insane what they're capable of. And now, even with the boat tail slugs that are being made, they are far outperforming what a rimfire can do, because a rimfire is now the one that's limited because of the SAMI specs and the bullet design, and the fact that it has to be crimped by the cartridge, and the velocity issues that come with rimfires. Airguns have now clearly overtaken rimfires, and that's crazy, because now all the rimfire shooters shooting precision rifle disciplines are now looking like, hey, how come this random guy with an air rifle is beating all of us? How is that possible? But that's where it's going.
That's really what I've been understanding as well. That was a pivot point of going into slugs. That was really the pivot point of FX and those barrels. So and it's really interesting to see. So in Norway, normally you have a 177. That's an air rifle. But on the FX side, you have 30 cals. I know those are pretty popular on your end as well. And there's 35s. Is that correct?
Yep, 35 cal. Yeah, and
it's amazing to see what you can do with those rifles nowadays.
exactly. And on the bench rest side, a bench rest, okay, under the World Rimfire Bench Rest Federation, they've now introduced what they call unlimited class, which allows you to shoot slugs, and it's a 100-meter competition. And a lot of people are shooting 22 caliber slugs, which is kind of changing how that works. But in the US, competitions like RMAC, they're still limited to pellets, which is kind of like, an F class, the 308 category. It's kind of like an equalizer. So, but it's incredible. Yes, the wind pushes those pellets around a lot, and that's part of the skill required is reading the wind. But it's incredible. It's if the wind dies,
horrible winds up there sometimes.
Horrible wind. And so it takes that whole thing of reading flags. I've never been able to do that. That's the one discipline where I'm like, okay, that's like, you have to be an expert at reading flags to really now compete at the highest level in bench rest. But those pellets, if the wind dies, you stacking pellets in half an inch at 100 meters, which is it's crazy. So air guns are pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember. So I've been there twice. I saw when Frederick was shooting his series, and he set a world record on 238 points, I believe, on the bench rest shoot, and he was using a GRS bipod, by the way. But it was pretty tremendous, because he was sitting there for a long while just watching the wind, and then he found a window, and he was just ding 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 ding. It was impressive. It's I believe that video is out there somewhere.
It's a crazy video.
It's amazing.
I think I put it on my channel as well, so it's out there. But what was impressive about that? Yes, the score was high. I think the score has been beaten since, but the speed at which he shot that card was like under 2 minutes or something ridiculous like that. And that's kind of the way you've got to do it. If the wind is crazy, and if you're not one of those insanely intelligent people who can read the wind all the way out to their target, you have to pick a window in the conditions where you actually where it's consistent, and you have to shoot quickly. And that's where building a good position with a bipod and a sandbag comes in, because a lot of the traditional bench rest setups with the front, the front rest, that you can adjust. That's a lot harder to move quickly between targets, far distance. But if you've got a bipod and a rear bag, and you know how to manipulate the rear bag properly, you can move pretty quickly, and you can you can steady down on your hold position, squeeze off the trigger, and get shots down range pretty quickly, which is essential for that style of shooting.
It's impressive to see, and there's so many people that are getting into those competitions, and it is Formula One racing basically. So it's pretty cool. On Armac as well, there's big bore long range shooting. Is that something you considered? I noticed that a lot of people have been using the Texan in 375, and also I know there's something called a Zeus and 72 caliber. Is that something you've been dabbling with as well?
So here in South Africa, we need a firearms license for anything bigger than 22 caliber, and it's actually close to impossible to get that, because when the importers who bring in the air guns, they have to, firstly, the manufacturer has to be registered as a firearms manufacturer in order for them to be put on the system properly, and then secondly, the importer has to import it as a firearm. And a lot of the airgun importers haven't done their paperwork properly, or are not set up to import firearms. So I haven't shot here with big bores because it's harder to get than a normal firearm. But and that's the reason I haven't shot at RMAC with big bore, because to rock up there and have to borrow a gun is quite difficult to do. But it's a really cool discipline. And I would say one of the most fun disciplines there, because it simulates hunting. So you've got a big bore air rifle, which is capable of shooting generally slugs with a pretty high ballistic coefficient. You are there's steel targets out to distance, and you have to range the targets. You've got to figure out what the wind is doing through that valley, which is very, very difficult to do. And then you've got to try get a first round impact on that target, which is like hunting. So there'll be like a deer target, there'll be a bear target, there'll be all these normal, game animals, which you can actually hunt in real life with air rifles, which is great. And it's a very, very relaxed discipline in that there's no time pressure, but it's extremely fun, and it's something that I would love to do one day. I probably need to buy myself a big bore air rifle that I leave there in the US, and then whenever I arrive there, I can pick it out, zero it, and go shoot.
Yeah. So how do you see the airguns keep evolving into the future? What do you think would be like the next kind of pivot point?
It's hard to say because I think the big leap has already happened. The big leaps were pressure regulators, which made the working pressure very stable. So you got the velocity consistency. And I think the other big leap was moving to slugs. So now we're at a position, now we're in a place where slugs, the quality of the slugs is very high. I think so from here, I think we're only going to see small incremental changes. But I think what's going to happen is, I think the ammo manufacturers are going to learn how to make ammo at a cheaper price more consistently. And I think there's a lot to learn there from the rimfire industry, in the sense that if you look at a company like Ely, for example, and how they lot test, and how the standards of like keeping track of what they've manufactured is really high. I think the airgun industry on the slug manufacturing side has still got a way to go to get consistency in the ammo. And once that happens, it's going to be hard to beat them. Right now, a lot of the very, very good shooters are using slugs that are turned on a lathe, which are very consistent, but very, very expensive. Or they are buying their own dies and making their own slugs. So that's what I do. I make my own slugs. It costs me nothing. So it's basically like shooting for free, which is very cool. You just buy a roll of lead wire, and you basically shoot like unlimited ammo for basically nothing. If you've got your own air compressor, the sport of airgun shooting can basically be free. But the industry has a way to go there. But also, I think that airguns are starting to learn, especially like the precision long range airgun market, like the kind of market that FX is targeting, are learning that one of the secrets to dominating an industry is, if you look at the Remington 700, there's nothing necessarily special or fancy about it, but it's the fact that it's a consistent
just works
action. And there's so many parts available for it, and there's so many stocks available for it. And so there's a variety of, you can pick and choose. There's triggers available for it. Whereas the airgun industry has the issue of every year or every 2 years, there's a new model. And so the aftermarket, trigger manufacturers or stock manufacturers are struggling to keep up. And I think that's what's going to happen, where we start to see airguns that are, for example, made with a Remington 700 footprint, or just an existing footprint like the FX DRS, for example, which is it's kind of established itself now in the airgun market. And the next generations hopefully will keep some sort of stability as far as what the footprint has, so that there can be more components made for it, more variety. I think that's the next thing that's going to really help grow the industry.
Yeah, we're getting more and more questions about that in all of our laminate stocks, and it's actually one of the inlets that we're going to do.
Cool.
We've been delayed because we made 2 new inlets, or 2 new models now with more for the hunting side, but we're definitely going to put the DRS into the Gyros Loki for next couple of months.
Nice. Yeah, it's a very cool.
Perfect.
It's a very cool barreled action, so that'll do very well, I think.
Yes, it is. Yeah. All right, we're going to jump over to Element Optics. You are a part of that as well, and I'd like to say, first of all, Element Optics, they are excellent value for money scopes. This is actually the one I shot my hog with a thermal clip on at 622 yards in Georgia. So,
nice.
And we were shooting this out to at least a mile. So we know they track well, so I would highly recommend the Element Optics for anyone who are in need of dialing to get to the point of impact they need on extended ranges. But when did you start to work with element optics? So I think most people know that FX, the owners behind FX, is also the parts owners behind the element optics. So
Yep.
I assume having a relationship with FX from earlier, that's one of the reasons you started working with those as well.
Yeah, so I think it happened quite a while back, and the story was, I think it was EWA 2017, 2017 or 2018. It was around about the time when YouTube was starting to clamp down on gun content. And thankfully, YouTube's got much better with that lately. But back then, it was like, okay, we're all going to lose our channels. Like, what do we do? And I think
that was
it
a bad time for everyone. I think
it was very bad. But I started thinking, what I need to get into the firearms or the gun industry in a way that's I'm not relying on YouTube for my income. And Frederick, the owner of FX, had the idea of, at that time FX was starting to do very, very well, and Frederick was looking at investing in something else. And optics, every gun has to have a scope, and what's great about optics is, if anything ever had to happen with the airgun industry or it had to lose momentum, optics you can put on, primarily on firearms too. And the firearms market is massive. So we thought, is there an opportunity to start an optics company? And so Frederick basically told me to, get some ideas and run with it. And originally we were only going to make one scope, the Nexus, and we started working on the Nexus with the idea of, okay, let's find a scope with like a high-end Japanese glass. It had to track properly. It had to have a good reticle design. It had to have the reticle and the turrets in the same units, which was a mistake we saw a lot of optics companies making. And we had to have very strict quality control procedures. And after working on the Nexus, we saw a big opportunity to actually expand the line into different price tiers, because what we saw was we saw that there were a lot of optics companies making what they called precision rifle scopes that were budget optics, sort of in the $500 to $800 range, but they were not tracking properly. They did not hold zero properly. The reticle designs weren't great. The turrets would wear out after a while. So we thought, how can you call that a precision rifle scope if it's not precise? There was so our whole philosophy with Element Optics is, no matter what the price range is, we want to make sure that the foundation of what makes a scope work, and that is the mechanical performance, that is the you have to build on that. Optical performance comes later. And if you're trying to build a scope that's retails for $500, you can't put great glass in it and sacrifice on mechanical performance, because what's the point of seeing your target if you're not going to hit it? So, so that was our whole philosophy, and we pride ourselves on having, even our most entry-level scopes, they track within 1% error, which is unheard of for that price tier. Normally, that's something that's reserved for the very high-end, like Japanese and European optics. Not anymore. We're able to put in the tolerances and the quality control checks and the design features, along with engineers that we work with who have been, at Schmidt and Bender for 10 to 20 years, learning in that sort of military spec industry, and bringing those material specs, hardness specs, design specs, all that, and integrate into what we do. So Element has been doing really well. We've got dealers now in, I think, over 50 countries. And it's grown a lot, and that is now my primary focus is Element. So YouTube is still there. I still do work with FX, but Element Optics is my baby, and co-owned by myself and Frederick and another guy in Sweden. So it's very, very excited.
Yeah, you guys have been doing an excellent job, and I think there's you guys are gonna see growth going forward as well, because it is, as I said, it's a great value for product, or value for money product.
Yeah.
And could you talk a little bit about the different tiers, because
Yes.
you guys have a kind of a good, better, best solution, as most people have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our philosophy, you know, if you let's say, for example, if you compare companies like Nightforce and Vortex, they're very different in that Nightforce and Vortex have products that are on the same tier on the high end,
Yeah.
but Vortex has tried to reach a much broader market in terms of what people can afford, and we kind of going that route, where we know that not everyone can afford one of our tier 1 Theos rifle scopes. It's outside a lot of people's budget. So if someone's getting into hunting or precision shooting, for example, we wanted to have something that can meet their budget. And so we have a number of tiers. So the bottom would be something like the Helix, which we tell people it goes through the same quality control procedures as the tier 1 Theos. It has to meet the same quality control specs, tracking tests, and return to zero, and reticle alignment, and shock tests, all that stuff. It has to meet the same standards. The only thing you're losing is optical performance. The higher end you go, the more the lenses cost, because you have to spend more money on certain types of glass, which which is able to handle different light conditions better, and perhaps different material specs on the body tube and stuff like that. Maybe you lose a few features in that you may not have like a revolution indicator or zero stop or whatever. But the whole concept is you can be spending far less money, but you can still go to a match. You can still dial out to distance, and your scope is still going to track, and it's still going to handle a recoil, and it's still going to hold zero. You may not see in quite the same detail you would out of a tier 1 scope, but you're still going to be able to compete with those people. So we're very proud of being able to, someone can purchase a more affordable Helix, then work their way up to, let's say, a Titan, which has more lenses, so it costs a bit more. It's got a larger diameter body tube, so you get more elevation travel out of it. But you're maintaining those mechanical performance standards. And then if you're willing to spend more, you can move your way up to a Nexus or a Theos and just get that better optical performance.
Yeah, the one I chose was the Titan. One of the key reasons I wanted that one is actually that I hunt quite a bit with thermals. That's allowed in Norway, and also we use that for hogs in the US. And being a 3-18, one of the great things is that you normally shoot around 10 power when you shoot with thermals. And when you do that, the reticle is actually quite big. So you can actually see and use it instead of just having a reticle that is kind of forward and you just see a little dot in the middle. So that's one of the key features I love about it. And as I said, the tracking is excellent. And it's a 34 millimeter tube. So it just matches everything I'm looking for in that range.
Yeah, that particular model has a lot of travel. It's very popular for ELR matches, because it can, because of the 3 times base magnification and the 34 mm tube, we can get a whole lot of travel out of it. So it's a very versatile scope.
Like 43 mils, I believe.
Yeah, it's plenty.
43 mils of elevation. That's quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. We see like the trends in scopes and stuff like that. There's more and more electronics going into it. Is that something you're looking at doing more for Element Optics in the future, you think, or?
So we have kind of started on the journey already. We have a model called the Hyper 7, which is it's an optical scope with a digital reticle. And I think the concept behind that is, with a traditional sort of fully digital scope with a camera or a sensor in the front and then a display at the rear, you're always going to be limited by battery life. You're going to be limited by the resolution of the display. and you're going to have some sort of lag between when when the image is displayed and what's actually downrange. And there's a lot of other things with limitations on zoom. Normally you have digital zoom, which is not that great. So there's definitely a market for that, particularly with sort of thermal and night vision stuff. But I think for now, we feel that for daytime optics, which is more our sort of area of expertise, and long range shooting and precision rifle shooting and hunting, you can't beat the optical performance of a traditional optical scope. So I think that where electronics is really going to come in for what we want to do is on the ballistic side. And so, for example, there's some companies doing great stuff with a heads-up display in a normal optical scope where you can see what distance you're actually dialing to. I think that's a really cool innovation. And then also innovations with having your projected point of impact displayed on your reticle. So we've done that with the Hyper 7. The Hyper 7 has some limitations in that it doesn't have digital zoom. It's a fixed magnification scope. But I do think that there's a place for electronics in scopes, particularly when it comes to having some sort of predicted point of impact on your reticle and having information displayed and integrating that with a rangefinder. So we've kind of started that journey in that we've launched an electro-optic side, Hyper 7 being one thing, but with rangefinders being another thing. We've got a whole bunch of rangefinders with built-in ballistic capabilities that are selling extremely well. We think we've got very good software in them. We've got a good app, and the whole user interface we think is very easy to use and good value for money. And we have some cool stuff in the works. So yeah, come to IWA and you might see some interesting stuff at the Element Optics booth over there.
I will definitely come visit you. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. And will I see the spotting scope with rangefinders and applied ballistics software in it?
Not anytime soon, but you may see some stuff that will work into that somewhere. But yeah, we're on that track. We think especially rangefinders, rangefinding binoculars, weapon-mounted rangefinders. Yeah. There's a lot of that technology is becoming more affordable, and we have the right software to back it up, and we've got the right people in our team that are experienced shooters, a lot of military experience, and we fully in on that side. We think that ballistics is, as you have to have some sort of ballistics calculator or solver and a decent range finding solution in order to take those long shots. And so we're trying to build an ecosystem of products that works well with our mechanical traditional scopes as well, that you can build a whole shooting system.
Yep, great. Thank you. We're getting up to 53 minutes, I see. So there was no problem filling the 45 minutes we were planning.
Yeah, 100%.
It's great to see you. Great to see you as always. Thank you, Matt, for being on our podcast. It was really great. And to the audience, please make sure to check out Air Arms Hunting South Africa on YouTube and Instagram. Also check out the Element Optics lines. And it's thank you again for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Oscar.
Thank you. So that's going to be all for GRS in this episode. I would encourage you to subscribe to the GRS Rifle Stock Hub on GRS, not on GRS, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube podcasts. So thank you again, Matt. I hope to see you, or I will see you on IWA. So that's actually just at the end of the month. So are you going to be at N4Stack as well? We're going to be there as well.
No, just IWA.
Okay, perfect. Okay, then thank you so much. We'll see you guys soon, and have a great day.